Before we get into today's episode, a brief word about this week's events around white supremacy and the president's remarks. His insistence on imputing violence on both sides, quote, completely misses the point, of course, in that one side's resistance, however imperfect, has been justified since at least the 1940s by the historically proven abuse of power and ethnic cleansing agenda of racial supremacy. To no one's surprise by now, Trump's insanity at pronouncing both sides equally guilty is in fact ludicrous, because it equates evil with good, a determination he obviously has no compass, no core, and no soul by which to measure. I do hope that my fellow Americans do not share his oblivion and stupidity. Stand strong, resistors. Even though they know not what they do not deserve forgiveness, patience, or passivity. That said, we must do more than punch individuals on the street. We must enlighten whatever hearts and minds are left of those who elected him. Speak out, write blogs, songs, poetry, vote, talk to friends and family, coerce, convince, and persuade. But please do not think this will go away without some serious social chemotherapy.
I don't know. Say it with me. I don't know. Good God, it is liberating. I am a towering mountain of ignorance. I don't know. We're taught to believe that everything has a reason. And so we observe the world, we see what happened, and then we define the thing that happened as the reason the thing happened. But I think a lot of the time we end up mixing up thinking something with knowing something. This is why it can be so impossible to talk about certain topics with certain people. They've tied those suppositions to themselves so tightly with knots of narrative and constructed reality and values that there's just no untying it. And maybe unsurprisingly, in those situations, the best course of action is just to be friends. Maybe even ask them about that thing that they've created, because to them, it's immensely valuable. The world as we perceive it, as we've built it inside of ourselves, is a lie that we tell to ourselves, not out of deception, but out of necessity. We have no other choice. We simply cannot understand the world as it is, and so we construct. But sometimes I just have to tell myself the thing that is definitely true, the truest thing I can say, which is that I don't know.
Never know.
This is the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast with Bob Pondillo and Cass Midgley.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 164 of the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast. I'm Cass Midgley. Today, Dr. Bob Pondillo and I interview Molly UnMormon. Obviously, this is a pseudonym. She's not entirely out to her friends and family. Molly is a blogger, writer, and poet at Doubting Dogma. That's doubtingdogmablog.wordpress.com. She lives in South Central Pennsylvania with her husband and 2 dogs. She served in the Army and continues her career in the civilian sector of the Federal Service. Yeah, she's kind of badass. She grew up in Colorado, where she was born and raised in a conservative and devout Mormon home. After several phases of not attending church and some revealed family secrets, she doubted the truthfulness of the church. It was another 2 years before she began doubting the core of her faith and finally wrote her letter of resignation to the church. In order to deal with the frustrations of lost faith, she began blogging and later podcasting about her journey. Before we get into our talk with Molly, this conversation brought up something for me that I want to emphasize. Relationships. Yeah, I'm frustrated at how many relationships are complicated by, if not ended by, the fact that we no longer adhere to the master narrative of Christianity, or in this case Mormonism, and how that somehow equates to no longer having enough in common, as humans, to remain in contact or congenial with friends and family. But the human condition is unavoidably universal, and we all have the shared experience of trying to find our way in the world. We all get stuck in traffic, as Marlene pointed out last week. We all get sick now and then. We all form opinions about things like movies or sports or politics, home decor, ice cream flavors, etc. And this brings up for me our ability to compartmentalize. Compartmentalization is a tool that can benefit our lives or diminish it, depending upon how we use it. Compartmentalization is an unconscious psychological defense mechanism used to avoid cognitive dissonance, or the mental discomfort and anxiety caused by a person having conflicting values, cognitions, emotions, beliefs, even personas. For example, Walter White, the character on Breaking Bad, was a high school chemistry teacher and family man while living a double life as a meth cook. We all do it. We're different people around, say, our grandparents as we are around our intimate friends. We may also know, in one part of our brains, that horoscopes are bullshit, and yet read them anyway because it rings true and feels good to think the universe really knows me and perhaps has plans laid out for me. Compartmentalization can be a tool that makes you a better person in that you are more engaged in the present moment because you've set aside distracting things that are on your mind in order to fully focus on the task at hand. For example, it can be helpful to leave one's thoughts around one's job at the office in order to be more present for your loved ones at home. This is healthy compartmentalization because you're not in denial about those other things. You're just controlling which thoughts you're going to focus on now, knowing that you will attend to those others later. On the flip side, we can knowingly or unknowingly use compartmentalization to partition off thoughts that make us uncomfortable. When I was a Christian, I had to tell myself things like, God knows what he's doing, whenever I would have thoughts or fears around, say, my daughter rejecting Jesus and being cast into outer darkness forever while I feasted at the banquet table with Jesus in his throne room. We delay our own maturity when we bury our heads in the sand instead of get honest with ourselves. This, too, is compartmentalization. A Christian who is a good person at heart has to compartmentalize a God who commits genocide, eternal torture, and doesn't intervene in tragic and or unjust circumstances so they can sing a song of worship to that monster on Sunday morning. Or in the context of my concern today for broken relationships due to religion, compartmentalization allows people to choose loyalty to their God, who is both imaginary and evil, over their loyalty to their own family member or friend, who is real and good. Compartmentalization is how the majority of evangelicals believe Trump is a good thing for the country. Or say a pro-life person is simultaneously pro-capital punishment, or hawkish when it comes to bombing foreign nations. But when it comes to Christians allowing themselves to come in contact with people who they know hold a different belief than theirs, their precious belief that ensures their acceptance into heaven and was purchased by a torturous beating of their beloved Savior, God-man, and left to die a slow, painful death nailed to a cross, they not only want to mentally compartmentalize those conflicting thoughts and evidence that cast doubt on their beliefs, they want to compartmentalize you, us, the people that represent such evidence. Our very presence reminds them of their own doubts. I don't want to overflatter ourselves, but I imagine that in some ways they envy us. They envy our courage, and those who are more on the margins of their own faith are probably watching us to see how that works out, taking the path of outright unbelief. One last note on this subject of compartmentalization. In my personal therapy, I have done some work with dissociative issues, where parts of me, be they the Cass that experienced something traumatic at a certain age, or the Cass that didn't get enough affirmation from his father, or the 17-year-old Cass who didn't properly grieve his father's death and ran into the arms of a beautiful, affirming woman to prop up his ego and establish validation and identity vicariously through her. The goal of integrating these compartmentalized versions of oneself is healthy. My 51-year-old self has benefited greatly from comforting my fearful, insecure 17-year-old self. by welcoming him into the 21st century, to forgiving the caste that made horrendous public mistakes, to affirming the sexually confused caste, and reversing the damage done by shame and self-hatred. I can attest to the benefits of integrating one's fractured self, who was conflicted and divided, actually fighting within oneself and manifesting in self-sabotage, paranoia, and being a walking contradiction. As an ex-Christian, I welcome my former Christian self into my core, rather than deny that I ever believed it, as embarrassing as that may be. And by saying yes to my journey in all its hills and valleys, I accept my reality and restore my dignity. Ironically, when a person remains a compartmentalized person, I think they find comfort in what I'll call counterfeit integration. Instead of integrating internally, they join a group of people just as compartmentalized as they are. All the members of the group have forfeited their personal agency, and so they can feel good about themselves, though they've sold their soul up the river. Their doubts can be squelched because all these people can't be wrong. Such a group is good at putting on airs and masks and posing as good people, nice and thoughtful. But it's only because of their deep need for acceptance. You know the difference between someone being kind because they need something and someone being kind because they're kind. Conversely, when a person integrates within themselves, accepts their self, they don't have the unhealthy need for safety in numbers or groupthink. They do, however, being human, still desire friendships, except now they are whole and integrated. They look for relationships with other whole and integrated people, other yes-sayers, a community made up of people who love themselves, who are comfortable in their humanity and unashamed of their flawed, imperfect selves, is far more capable and empowered to be honest and real and genuine in their community than a group of compartmentalized, reality-denying scaredy cats who are embattled within themselves with self-loathing and disgust of their own humanity. When ideologies and tenets are canonized, and that means set aside as sacred, unquestionable, and static, and then education comes along, or research or science reveals the fallacies of those beliefs, or at least the need to amend them, we are either going to discard those former beliefs and embrace the newfound facts we've been exposed to, or we're going to set those beliefs aside in their own compartment of our brains, and we'll tote them along as long as we aspire to be honest people with integrity. We have no other choice. But consider the emotional and mental toll that living with such inner tension might have on your life. I think it's obvious that the healthiest route and the most moral choice is to try to be an honest person with eyes wide open, who holds on very loosely to ideologies and beliefs, who is willing to release them when they prove false or no longer serve us. Our hearts and minds cannot help but be freer and happier when we lighten the load by throwing old sentimentalized things away. When we stop being mental hoarders of things we're afraid to cast aside, when we subject all our compartmentalized beliefs to scrutiny and retain only that which is true and aligns with our new values that we've allowed to evolve by critical thinking, snapping out of denial, and saying yes to what is. We taped this conversation on July 30th, 2017. We interview people you don't know about a subject no one wants to talk about. We hope to encourage people in the process of deconstructing their faith and help curb the loneliness that accompanies it. We think the world is a better place when more people live by sight, not by faith. Please subscribe to our podcast or leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, you can support us monetarily in two easy ways. You can pledge $1 per episode or more through Patreon. That's patreon.com/EA podcast. Or you can leave a lump sum donation through PayPal at our website, everyone'sagnostic.com. The smallest contribution is greatly appreciated. Our opening monologue is an excerpt from a YouTube by Hank Green titled Towering Mountain of Ignorance. The music behind it is Never Know by Jack Johnson. The segue music on this episode are segments from our guest's favorite band, Nightwish. Thanks for listening, and be a yes-sayer to what is.
Hello.
Hey.
Molly, hello. How are you?
Okay.
Good to hear from you. Yeah.
Hey.
This is Bob.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So, Molly, where are you calling from?
Pennsylvania.
Which part?
I'm in Shippensburg. It's
Yeah.
about an hour south on 81 from Harrisburg.
Yeah. I've been through there. I think you go, well, maybe you go that way going to Washington or something. I don't know. Maybe not. Anyway, I remember seeing the sign. I'm from Ohio originally.
Okay.
So we go out there, and we've got relatives in Pennsylvania or in Philadelphia. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so we go up there.
So this is how geographically inept I am. Is Pennsylvania up next to Ohio?
Well, the western part of it is, yeah.
Okay.
Western Pennsylvania is close to the Ohio border. Yeah, well, I grew up in Youngstown, so that's like 20 miles from Pittsburgh, from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And we watch Pittsburgh TV, Channel 2.
Is that where you're originally from, Molly?
No, I grew up in Colorado.
Okay.
What brought you there?
My husband.
Yeah, that seems tall.
What does he do?
He works direct care mental health.
Oh, okay, wow.
Direct care.
Yeah, so he works at a place that they've got different mental health patients that live there, and they need some supervision but not complete supervision.
Okay.
Like they have to go to him to get his meds and everything like that.
Okay.
And if they have problems in their apartment and stuff, he's the first one they go to.
Cool.
Well, we're talking to you today because you're an ex-Mormon. Was he an ex-Mormon too?
No, he's not.
Okay.
Did he have any religious background at all?
He grew up some flavor of Christianity. I don't know which one.
Yeah. But did your deconversion take place during your marriage?
Yeah, I mean, I was already inactive, not going to church regularly.
Yeah. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, maybe, or something.
Yeah. It just really apathetic when I moved here.
Apatheistic.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Let's go back to your childhood and your parents, and were they? I guess you raised in a Mormon household, right?
Oh yeah. I was born into the church, and my dad was born into the church. My mom was a convert. When you're born into the church, there's the church records and everything, and that all starts as soon as you get your baby blessing.
Okay, which is like a sprinkling of water or something, or
no, they don't baptize until you're 8.
Okay.
And that's by immersion, like a full dunking.
Yeah, the age of reason, 8.
Yeah.
Of course, the Catholics do it even earlier, so whatever.
That's the quote-unquote age of accountability, as Joseph Smith said.
If you're talking to an 8-year-old, that's true. That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
but
okay.
The baby blessing is they take you up there, and then typically your father or whichever priesthood holder in your family is going to bless you. They take you up to the front, and other priesthood members gather around, and they all they just form a circle around you, and they all have their hand in there, and they
Are they touching you? Is that the idea?
Yeah, they with all of their hands underneath you, they just kind of hold you up, and then they each have their other hand on the gentleman next to them's shoulder. So they're standing in a circle. That's when you first get it's called getting your name in a blessing. Yeah. And so that is the name that goes on your church membership records.
Well, I don't know anything about Mormonism, really. I mean, we've had a couple on the show before, but it's just I don't give a damn about my own religion anymore. I don't, a lot of shows, they'll go through verse by verse through these books, and that's the last thing in the world that sounds interesting to me.
Well, you've seen the Book of Mormon, though.
Oh, well, that's a whole nother deal. Yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of
Molly, have you seen the musical Book of Mormon?
No,
oh, you have to.
I keep wanting to, but yeah.
Well, what's the nearest town that it would come to there?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if it would ever come to Philly or if I'd have to actually go up to New York for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably Philly. It would come to, it came to Nashville, and some of those songs are pretty nasty. I mean, they're pretty, they're pretty. And I never thought it'd come here.
Well, it's Matt and Trey.
It's what? Yeah, I was going to say it's the South Park guys that do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We wouldn't expect anything less.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That would be like expecting a clean show from No Illusions or something.
That's right.
Which I saw when I was, sorry, Bob.
Yeah.
When I was, trolling your pictures, and I saw that you were at a conference with a bunch of other atheist podcasters. And
yeah, you have your own, too. Your own podcast, right?
Yeah, a little tiny one. I started that as a offshoot from my blog, which I started back in October.
Called Doubting Dogma.
Yeah, which started when I really started questioning my membership, like hardcore, and my beliefs and everything like that.
And how long ago would that be?
Oh, that was just 7, 8 months, 9 months ago.
Okay.
Really? Oh, you're brand new, huh? Wow.
You started blogging just 8 months ago about your journey?
Yeah, just October of 2016.
Okay.
Cool.
Have you found some other ex-Mormons or Mormons on the fence that are resonating with what you're saying?
I had one reach out to me after he heard me on Bryce Blankenagel's show, Naked Mormonism.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote to me a little message on the page and it was like, hey, just wanted to let you know you're not alone, and I'm an ex-Mo too, and here in the central Pennsylvania area. So I had him on my show last week, actually.
Cool, very cool. So ex-Mo, that's a word
Ex-Mo, I like it. Molly ex-Mo.
But where I was going about 5 minutes ago, and I was disclaiming that I don't know much about Mormonism, is it part of the Mormon doctrine or the narrative that the people that believe the right things and are in the book of life or whatever go to heaven, and those outside the faith go to hell? Is that part of the picture?
Yes and no. They typically don't call it heaven and hell, though.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is it planets?
Yeah, they go to their own planet.
Sort of, actually, because it breaks down into 3 kingdoms. There's the celestial kingdom, that's where God lives, the terrestrial kingdom, and then the telestial kingdom. And the telestial kingdom is like the lowest one, except for this other one that's kind of just this blob off to the side called outer darkness. And that's where Satan and his angels that never got their bodies, that never got to come to earth, that's where they are.
Okay.
And you can end up going to outer darkness, but that's for, as they say, denying your calling and election, because they...
Say that again?
Calling and election.
Oh, calling and election. I see.
There's this thing in the church where they say that you can have your calling and election made sure. And that's where, God or Jesus appears to you and says, you are most definitely going to go to the celestial kingdom. You're with us. You've made it. And then if you at some point deny God and deny the Holy Ghost, then you go to outer darkness.
A lot of folks there, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, what a load of crap. That's very interesting. I mean, aren't people creative?
Oh, yeah. Joseph Smith was quite the creative one, apparently.
Yeah. Very interesting. Gee, your own planet.
What's the movie? I'm trying to think of that British comedian who's atheist, and he's out, and he talks about it all the time. But he made a movie where he's the only one that can lie. Everybody else is incapable of lying. And because the world is full of people incapable of lying, everything that everybody says, you believe.
Right.
And yet this guy, and what's his name?
It's not Eddie Izzard. I know who you mean, though.
Yeah.
The guy that did The Office.
Yeah, the original British Office. Anyway, he comes out and he stands on the front porch because all these people have gathered because he's been saying things about and all these people's ontological questions are trying to be answered. And so he comes out and he's just making shit up. And so they said, well, what about this part? What about the afterlife or whatever? And he's like, yeah, I'm making it up. And because they believe it, they believe it.
Okay, number 9. The man in the sky who controls everything decides if you go to the good place or the bad place. He also decides who lives and who dies.
Does he cause natural disasters?
Yes.
Did he cause my mom to get cancer?
Yes.
Did he cause that tree to land on my car last week?
Yeah.
Did he kill my dad with that heart attack?
Yeah.
I say fuck the man that lives in the sky. Yeah, that guy's evil.
That guy's a coward, hiding up there doing bad things to us. Why doesn't he do it to our faces?
We have to stop that evil bastard before he kills us all.
Wait, listen. The man who lives in the sky and controls everything is also responsible for all the good stuff that happens.
He's the guy that saved my life on that fishing trip when the boat capsized?
Yes.
Did he capsize the boat?
Yeah.
He killed my grandmother and left me those millions of dollars?
You bet, yes.
So he's the one who cured my mom's cancer.
Yeah.
So he's kind of a good guy, but he's also kind of a prick, too.
But this is what I hear now. This is kind of the lens through which I hear, or the filter. As Molly, as you're describing, well, there's the celestial level, and then there's all these levels, and you know that some guy's just pulling this out of his ass. I mean, it's so weird that.
I mean, to hear it, it's, if you're not a believer, you just sit and you go, where, huh?
Well, what? And just I'm starting to get like you, Bob, where I'm awestruck by how credulous and gullible people are.
Yeah.
And the need, I can't get over the deep human need to give your life meaning and to secure your immortality.
And the fear of hell, the fear of the dark planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever they call it. Yeah.
Well, outer darkness is what they're calling it. And there is a place where Jesus says, I think somebody, where they'll be cast out into outer darkness or something.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
All right. So you got siblings?
Oh, yeah. I'm second out of 5.
Okay.
Okay.
Are any of the others... What do you call it? Unmo?
Nomos.
Nomo?
Exmo.
Exmo.
Well, my older sister has recently decided, she and her husband are leaving the church, but not because they don't believe the teachings of Joseph Smith, but because they believe that the church has strayed too far from that.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah. And then my little sister, the next one after me, has left the church to pursue Messianic Judaism.
Okay. That's cool.
And then
right.
I have no idea where my youngest sister is at. And then my little brother has Down syndrome, so he was never baptized.
Oh,
is there a reason for that? Or do they not permit?
Because he doesn't, he can't comprehend.
So he never reaches the age of accountability.
Yeah.
So do they know that he's going to the outer planet then?
Well, no, because, even though I guess there have been some earlier prophets that said that those born with handicaps and stuff are because they weren't valiant enough in the premortal existence, so they're being punished. There's actually been recent stuff saying, no, because they can't comprehend, they are the chosen ones, and they don't have anything to prove in this life, so they're not accountable. They're as clean as a babe, so yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. Can you ever really leave that church, though? The sense I get is with Ancestry.com and all that stuff that's happening. I mean, they got you, man.
You're just burned into your neural pathways? Like Molly's going to have trouble ever ridding herself of this?
No, I think they hang on to you. And they, you could help me with this, Molly. I don't know. Isn't there, even if you're dead, they could put you in heaven? You know what I mean? Isn't there a way to,
Well, they do perform temple ordinances for the dead. So, I have gone to the temple, and when I was in Young Women's, which is between the ages of 12 to 18, and you go to the temple and you can do baptisms for the dead. And it's not, we dig up a body and we take it and we dunk the body, because that's unsanitary and stuff. But No, it's you get baptized for and in behalf of so-and-so who is dead. And so you're getting baptized proxy.
Vicariously, proxy,
them.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. They're trying to show compassion to those who didn't believe or whatever, and everybody gets to go and that kind of, I mean, ultimately, I see the humanity in it, but
it's a nice gesture.
Just a weird thing.
Yeah, and some people get like really upset about it because they're like, well, they rejected it in this life. Why are you going to force it on them in the next? And the Mormons try and say, well, it's still up to them if they accept it or not.
Yeah.
Even in the next life, they're still given the choice on if they want to accept it. So we're not like forcing them into Mormonism, but yeah, I mean, as far as like the church records go and stuff, I had to write a letter to them saying I don't want to be counted as a member anymore.
Oh, yeah. Did they write back?
Yes. And I actually specified in there, because I've heard tales of, well, they'll send the missionaries, they'll send your bishop, the stake president, and everybody's going to show up and try and convince you not to go and all this kind of stuff. So I specified in there, I don't want any contact except the response saying that my membership has been, taken off the books.
Right. Wow.
And I was very surprised that that's all the response I got.
Oh, cool.
Huh.
Took 2 months, but yeah.
And I do you really even know if they did? I don't know.
Well, no,
they don't give
I
you a
don't
receipt
know because
or anything.
I've heard that even when they take your name off the membership records, they still somehow like count you among their numbers just so they sound like they have more or something. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I wouldn't put it past them.
No, I would think that's a big deal. Yeah, absolutely.
So you're going today by Molly, which is a pseudonym because you're not out, and to your siblings, your family, your whatever, maybe even your employer. How's that going? I mean, as far as you keeping it on the down low.
I'm okay. Like my 3 sisters know that I have left the church, but they don't know why. I haven't told them why. But since they've left as well, they aren't really questioning that because, they think the church is corrupt and stuff anyway. So
talk to me about your attachment to Mormonism and maybe of your relationship with God through Mormonism. I mean, how difficult was your departure? Is there a part of you that misses some of it? If so, what? How's that going?
It was actually really, really difficult to leave. I mean, even though I've been like
doubting and questioning for some time.
Yeah, and a lot of it wasn't even that. It was just, I just didn't feel like going.
Okay.
I was like, there's better things I can be doing for 3 hours of my Sunday than sitting in church and being bored or just feeling completely awkward because, oh my goodness, it is such a strange community and the way they have it set up. And it's so insular. It's a very insular community. And so, I was going to the singles ward before I moved here. And
I don't think ward is a very good choice of words.
Oh, well, that's
what they call it, maybe, huh?
That's what they call it, yeah.
No, I'm not saying it's not your choice of words. I'm saying that they made a poor choice. That's just
sounds like someplace where they lock you up.
It sounds like a part of the prison wing or something. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it is, but
in many ways, yeah.
But take us inside that. What you're describing is a weird environment. I mean, what makes it weird? Put a GoPro camera on my head and take me into that room.
Okay, so you turn 18, and so then you start going to the young single adult ward, where all the young single adults go, and that's
kind of Sunday school, or is this
18 to 30? It's the whole church. 3 hour
for that whole
block.
3 hour time you're with those kids, you're with your peers.
So they want you to go and meet a nice Mormon girl, meet a nice Mormon boy, whichever, and
wow, they're staging courtship.
Yes, because they want you to marry in the church because you can't get to the celestial kingdom unless you get married in the temple to a nice little Mormon person and progress that way.
Procreate, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. They set it up so for 12 years you're in the young single adult ward.
Wow.
And I was there that whole time, dated just a tiny bit, but never
found Mr. Right.
No, and there was one that I dated for a while that I was like, well, there's possibilities here, but I knew part of his background that, he had spent some time away from the church, and I was like, okay, if there's anyone who's not going to judge me for my own past, that would be him.
Did you have a past at this point?
Yeah, because I had spent 3 years in the Army.
Oh.
And
pretty worldly.
Yeah, I hadn't followed all the little rules of Mormonism, and so the whole premarital sex thing, and so I was feeling guilty about that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And after his mom had died, he got involved in drugs and some other stuff, and then he was trying to clean himself up and go back to church, and I was like, if anyone's not going to judge me,
right.
But
boy, were you wrong.
Yeah, no, he still had so much he had to work through, and basically called me a whore because I wouldn't sleep with him, and it was not pretty. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'm done.
You're a whore because you won't sleep with somebody.
I know. I was like, I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Yeah, he was a little, confused on that one, apparently.
Yeah, not the first time I heard that either, but
So were you ever called, or did they do the 2x2 women door-to-door elder?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do, but at the time, women could go on their mission at 21, and I joined the Army when I was 20, so I never went on my mission. Yeah. My little sister did.
Okay. You mind me asking how old you are now?
36.
Okay. Okay. What did you do in the Army? What was your thing, your specialty?
I was a military police.
Oh, well, be very careful. That's right. So, yeah.
Did you serve? Where did you serve?
Basic training and AIT, which is advanced individual training. That's your job-specific training. That was all in Fort Leonard Wood. So I spent 5 months there.
What state?
Which is in Missouri.
Okay.
It's a couple hours, I want to say southwest or something-ish of St. Louis.
Okay.
And then from there, I went to Fort Bliss, Texas.
Okay.
Which is in El Paso, the very westernmost corner of the state.
Yeah, I have a friend living down there. She calls it Hell Paso.
Yes, we have called it that. We've got some nicknames for Fort Bliss as well.
Huge base down there, though.
Yeah, it's grown so much since when I first got there. Because when I first got there, it was like, well, it's a busy day if you've got a shoplifting and maybe a DUI comes in the gate. But when I left, because they were shutting down a lot of the bases in Germany and such, I was going to drug calls all the time. I was going to sexual assaults, and it was constant DUIs on the weekend. So,
and this and your domain is the base. That's where you police.
Yeah.
Wow,
I gotcha.
Well, I haven't been there, but my wife went down, and they were driving down the street, and for miles and miles, and she said, "By the way, we're still on the base." So it feels like a town.
It's huge.
Yeah,
because Fort Bliss actually has 1.1 million acres that falls under their jurisdiction. Wow. No, but most of that is the desert training area because they used to have the air defense artillery out there, so they needed the big area for the Patriot missiles and that kind of stuff for the ranges.
Wow.
That is a massive amount of space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Like I said, most of that is training area, not the base itself. But the base itself has gotten ridiculously huge, and it was still growing when I left 3 years ago.
Molly, a young woman, out of high school and stuff might go to college. Why did you choose to go to in the military?
Well, I did go to college for a couple years, but I was feeling all discouraged because I wasn't doing well in some of the prerequisite classes because I didn't care about them. I was like, I don't need this for my degree. And so I felt all guilty because I'm like, I'm wasting my parents' money because they're paying for it and I'm not doing well. So I was like, no, I'll join the Army and they'll train me and I'll get paid while they're doing it.
Yeah, kind of makes sense. Huh? That's great.
So,
and you, what year did you get out?
2005.
Okay. Then what?
So are you a policeman now? Are you a police person or whatever they call them? An officer?
Yeah, what do you do for a living?
Yeah,
now?
what's your thing?
Yeah. Still doing that.
Okay, well, wow. Isn't that something? And, you would think that, of course, we've had some police officers on here who are atheists as well.
Yeah. Mark
Stevens comes to mind immediately, and he says, he's had several opportunities to pull a gun and use lethal force, but hasn't. Because he talked people down, because he's smart, because he doesn't want to hurt people, and until they unnecessarily, right?
Well, yeah, and this job profession really draws one of two types of people. I mean, most of them are the alpha personalities, but there are those that really want to help the community and those that just want to be a dick.
Yeah.
And so
I think Mark would concur. That's a pretty good summation of this is not a political show, but Bob and I exercise the liberty to get political every now and then and have been very vocal about our politics. But Mark says that most of his peers are Trump supporters.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Big time.
Yeah, and he did mention that a lot of people they don't, a lot of a lot of young men right out of high school, alpha types, and all they want to do is follow ABC, just follow the structure that's there.
They've got policy and procedures for every encounter with a criminal, and they don't want to have to think. Or actually, I think it's more like the department doesn't want them to think.
Yeah.
And so they give them 8 steps A, B, and C, and what Mark is saying is it's much more nuanced than that.
Yes.
You got to use your head.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
What do you feel about that, Molly?
Well, because every situation is different and unique. And like they always say, there's no routine traffic stop because you never know what you're walking up on.
Yeah.
And those can be one of the most dangerous things. And actually, domestics can be pretty much the most dangerous call you can go on. In fact, one that I responded to back in El Paso, the guy got the weapon away from one of the other officers, and there was a big scuffle. And
pretty scary.
It was.
Well, passions are high on those things.
Yeah. So well, you could get shot. You can get hurt. How many times have you heard that? Officers getting hurt for something like that.
Back when I was a Christian and I was an intercessor, I used to pray hours and hours a day. And one of the passions that I had to pray for was police officers, because I just felt like that they were providing such a great service to the community, for one thing. It's just a social structure. But every time you walk up, you pull a car over and you're walking up from your car to theirs is...
Yes,
it's a razor's edge. Like it's a flip of the coin almost. I mean, you don't know what you're walking up to, and I just was so empathetic towards, or sympathetic towards those people that I prayed for cops every day.
Yeah.
Well, hey, is cops a derogatory term?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
You never know these days, when a word becomes taboo.
Yeah.
And I just thought, as soon as I said that, I thought, I don't mean to diminish the...
But still, I love getting married, as you know. And I was married to a woman whose father was a cop. Uh-huh. And a great guy, wonderful guy, gone now. But kind of always suspicious.
Oh, yeah.
Always, I think you have to be almost. It's like if you're a nurse or a doctor, you have a certain professional mindset. You screw your head on a certain way. And you got to be for your own safety, I think. Is that what happens with you too, Mo?
Yeah, they kind of say, well, everyone's a suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the definition of suspicious.
Yeah.
I just, no. I have a great deal of respect for you. Absolutely.
So, Molly, you get out of the military. I mean, where are you on your journey? I guess by the time you're deconstructing your faith, or, considering sending a letter to the headquarters saying, take me off the list, you're already out of the military. You're probably doing your job as a police officer.
It's just weird because, like I said, I had these cyclical on again, off again phases, going to church and then not, and then going to church for a year and then not for another year and this kind of stuff. And I mean, it got hard because I got old enough that I was too old for the young single adult ward. Mm-hmm. When the Mormon church stresses so much, especially to the ladies, that you need to marry a returned missionary and start having kids. Ready to go. You know, I mean, that you reach that age and now you have to go back to the family ward because they don't have a single adult ward that's 30 plus. And so it's like you're surrounded with families and kids, and you haven't been in a sacrament meeting where you've been hearing the 2-month-old scream for 12 years, you know? So it's really weird getting back into that environment. And then the fact that there's no other singles, so you're like, well, now I'm screwed because there's nobody to meet.
Yeah.
Okay, this is systemic. You get this? You see this?
Oh, yeah.
They create this group from like the 12 to 18-year-olds or something, you know, where your hormones are starting to really wake the fuck up.
Yeah.
They put them all in a room together. You know, they put them together for 3 hours a week. They're fostering relationships. You know, they're trying to create this. Sure. And then if you don't hook up in that time frame, the next level, they do not create a community for you.
Right.
Yeah, I guess there's some places like in Utah and Idaho where the Mormon population is so much more that they do have single adult wards at 30.
Oh.
But I mean, in El Paso, that just wasn't a thing because there weren't enough.
Yeah, I get it.
So,
but they do. This is clearly the pressure. I mean, it's probably the kind of thing that if you hung around as a 30-plus single woman going to church there, I mean, are you going to get side-eyed by people or looked down upon or wagged fingers?
Probably.
Yeah.
You already feel like they're whispering behind your back because you are, 29, 30, and you're not married yet, and what's wrong with her, and this kind of stuff.
I mean, that's true in the pop culture, main culture, but even more so, I think, in that subculture there. But
yeah, I mean, when you've got girls getting married at 18 and 19, like routinely, as soon as they graduate high school and this kind of stuff, and then, you've got the poor little bastards like me that are freaking 35 before they get married. I mean, it's
so your pocket of Mormonism didn't involve polygamy of any kind, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, because mainstream Mormonism, the actual Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, did away with polygamy, official declaration number 1, back before Utah became a state. So, they passed that in order for Utah to become a state, though the church will say it was, divinely inspired. So,
yeah.
What do you know? I've only heard from a distance. I think it had to do with the Romney campaign. But one of the criticisms of Mormonism is how late to the game they were with racism.
Oh, yeah. In the 70s,
because it was 1978 when official declaration number 2 was passed, saying that black men could have the priesthood.
Wow.
And Brigham Young, the second president of the church, had actually said, any man with even a drop of Negro blood in him, his words, not mine, cannot ever hold the priesthood because that's the mark of Cain.
Oh, yeah.
And so, so they're all not worthy, so they can't have it, says Brigham Young. And then they decide, oh, crap, the civil rights are happening. Well, maybe we'll hold off a little longer. Oh, okay, I guess we can't do this anymore. Okay, you guys can have the priesthood.
Wow. Isn't that something?
Yeah, and you get a university named after you for being a dick.
3 of them, in fact.
3 of them.
Because there's Brigham Young University there in Provo, Utah.
Right.
That's actually my dad and my sister's alma mater.
Okay.
And then there's Brigham Young University, Idaho, and Hawaii.
Really? Well, I didn't know that. I always thought there's only the first one that you mentioned. I thought that was it, but gee, okay. Interesting. So it wasn't, have you ever been to Jackson County, Missouri? Which, by the way, is where the Adam, where the paradise is, where our Garden of Eden.
Yeah, where the Garden of Eden was, and where Zion is going to be. Yeah,
right.
No,
Jackson County, Missouri. Yeah, we have to go there sometime and check that out. So, was it then that social cultural thing that was happening that kind of forced you out, or was there political things? I know they didn't like homosexuals for a while, and maybe they still don't. I don't know what the Mormon stance on that is. Maybe they have rule number 3 coming up.
Oh no, I don't think they're gonna let
gays
let the gays be open and actually have relationships with the people they're attracted to anytime in the near future.
No kidding.
Because, a few years ago, I don't remember if I was still in high school or if I was in college when it came out, but it was back then sometime. High school, I think. I think I was still in high school. Mm-hmm. They came out with the proclamation to the world about the family, saying how the family is a man and a woman and this kind of stuff. So
yeah, and they were real big on funding that election,
Prop 8.
Yeah, Prop 8 in California. My gosh, they poured millions of dollars into that just to defeat it. And that was on the cusp of just before all the change happened with and the Supreme Court ruling and all that with homosexuals. And wow.
Well, let me ask you this, Molly. Do you have a paragraph from your blog writing that kind of summarizes your goodbye-ness or something that we could read? I meant to research it before the show, but I partied a little too hard last night.
Oh, let me see.
Yeah, and take your time because I'm going to refill my coffee. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, were you able to find anything from your... something that just kind of summarizes? The thing about the work that we put into writing is so... you worked to put that paragraph together, and I think it makes for more intense...
Yeah, a lot of intellectual fuel
than just the gabbing that we're doing, which is fine. I love the gabbing too, but...
Yeah.
Did you find anything?
Well, I've got one that I titled The Tipping Point.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
And most of my blogs are around 500 words or less, so I can start reading, and if at any point I bore you, you can tell me to shut up.
That sounds like a great plan.
But Okay, and this one I posted it on December 16th, which was actually 3 days after I sent my letter to the church, because I sent that on December 13th.
Okay.
On a process as long and drawn out as this has been, it's really hard to pinpoint the exact moment when I started drifting away from church teachings and having an utter revulsion for the doctrine. For me, there were a few factors, not the least of which being their attitude toward marriage. Now, maybe attitude isn't the right word, or maybe it is, as they have such strict and condescending views about it. But it wasn't until I was planning my wedding that things got serious and brought up issues from the past that disturbed me. I didn't get to see my sisters get married. My older sister got married in the temple, as a Mormon girl is wont to do. If you're not versed on Mormon tradition, or maybe I should call it regulation, you would think that this is a good thing. And indeed, at the time, we all thought it was wonderful, but that doesn't change the fact that when one gets married in the temple, very few people get to witness the event. At the time she was married, I was 19. In order to go into the sealing room, as temple wedding ceremonies are called sealings, one has to meet the following requirements. 1. Be a member in good standing, including following the word of wisdom and paying a full tithe. 2. Go through an interview process with the bishop and stake president to be issued a temple recommend, a card that you have to present at the entrance to the temple in order to be admitted entrance. 3. You have to have already taken your endowment, a ceremony also performed in the temple. I personally can't tell you what it is or what goes on there because I never went through it. But it's after this that members get the so-called Mormon holy or magic underwear, aka the garment.
Okay.
The time that one takes their endowment is only slightly standard. It's usually either before you go on your mission or before you get married in the temple. For me, since I was single so long, I could have taken it out 10 years ago, but I never did. I never got myself into a place of the so-called good standing, obeying all the rules enough to feel worthy to go. So when my older sister got married, I was too young, so I got to wait outside with the rest of the family that weren't members, my mom's side of the family and my brother-in-law's family. My younger sister got married civilly first, because at the time her husband couldn't go to the temple. Unfortunately, there was some family drama going on that I won't get into here. So they moved their wedding date up. Because of that, I wasn't able to get time off work in order to attend. It was in Utah, and I was down in Texas at the time. Once they were able to go to the temple to be sealed, you have to wait a year to do so if you have a civil ceremony. I went to Utah for that. But again, I wasn't able to go inside, so I waited with my older sister's children in the waiting room. It's not something I speak of often, but it's something that stuck with me because it hurt. Sorry.
No.
Sure.
Arguably the biggest days of one's life, and I wasn't allowed to be there to share in it because I wasn't Mormon enough. And it goes on for a couple more paragraphs. I don't know if you want me to or if that's enough.
Well, we get it. And it's no need to go through that pain again either. So.
Appropriately called the tipping point because, and it's, here you are, a year later, or, years later, maybe even in some cases, and those wounds are still fresh.
Man, they hurt. Absolutely.
And that is, oh my gosh. I mean, like just
you just want to choke somebody. How dare you do that to another person?
They make it so complex. They make it so windy and sinewy. I mean, I'm just thinking
convoluted
just a mesh of rules, regulations
that mean absolutely nothing.
That are literally pulled out of somebody's ass.
Yeah.
And so people are waiting outside from weddings and can't come to certain things. That's hard. And I don't know. We always say it, but good for you for getting out.
Yeah. And I like the way you said revulsion. That's the word you used early on. Revulsion.
Yeah.
Because of their attitude toward marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was as you say, the tipping point for you.
And these are revulsion-worthy shit. I mean, like, if this is what I think is so. This is what sets us apart, the ex-religious people that we are, is that somewhere down the line we still had a little bit of a soul left that could be revulsed by that which deserves revulsion, because otherwise you just keep marching in step with the groupthink.
Yeah,
and it's these individuals. I don't know. I don't mean to get patriotic here, but, as far as like, not patriotic, but just sentimentality. I don't know what it is, but it's like, we're so brave, but we are. And Molly's brave. And this is hard to step out of line and say, I'm revulsed by this and I can see that the rest of you aren't. And that makes me scared and feel very alone in my feelings. Why am I the only one that am revulsed? Am I wrong? I mean, all the self-doubt, all the second-guessing.
You're the only one thinking is the reason why.
Exactly, but it's a lot of gymnastics that should never have to take place.
And it sounds like a secret society to me, too.
It does. It's a
special doors, and you got to go there, and you got to wait here, and magic words, and it's like, come on, man, this is America. Yeah. Or maybe, it's America. That's the way it is.
Well, yeah, and I guess a lot of the stuff that goes on in the temple actually has Masonic roots, because I guess they started all this crap right after Joseph Smith reached his 33rd Masonic level or whatever. So yeah,
so it's sort of a roundabout blackballing and what have you, which is, I think, where that notion of blackballing started and what have you.
But he's taking his cues from stuff he's learning in other subcultures and groups that he's in.
Yeah. Wow.
All right, Molly, I'm just, maybe we can shift out of the religious stuff. And
just one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
Just one more for me. That magic underwear thing.
Okay.
I'm really fascinated by this magic underwear. Now, and I didn't realize it has something to do with the marriage ceremony. Who knew? I mean,
not the marriage ceremony specifically, but you get it after you take out your endowment ceremony, which you always take out your endowment before the marriage.
So does this mean money of some kind, endowment? Or what does endowment mean?
No, I don't know. You go into the temple. Like I said, I never went through it. Someone actually secret filmed some of these things, so you can find some of them on YouTube if you want, and you can just be completely blow your mind right there.
Yeah.
But
well, you got me on the magic underwear. So they literally present you with foundation garments of some kind of underwear.
It's like an under t-shirt and shorts. I mean, they go down to the knee, and they're a thin material. You can get them in different materials, some that breathe better for the summer and some that are like silky and stuff. But I mean, they're all basic, and for the guys, they include almost a full half sleeve that go down not quite to your elbow, but just like a t-shirt. And the ladies, it's more of a cap sleeve because, fashion. So
oh, that's fun. I had no idea. So I might have seen people running around in their magic underwear, and I didn't even know it. See that?
Yeah, because that's the way they get to try and make sure that you dress modestly, because you don't want your garments showing at any time, so you have to cover it.
Oh, jeez.
That's it. I get it.
Yeah, it makes sense. In a weird, strange,
They've
perverted
thought
way.
of everything.
Yeah, they do.
And there was one more thing before we go on that I did want to talk about, because I almost sent my letter in a couple years ago because of something that happened in the family. And my mom had been trying to call and talk to me, and with my schedule, because I work shift work, and so it was hard to get a time so that I was awake and she was awake, because there's a 2-hour time difference and all that kind of stuff. So finally she wrote me an email, and she was like, well, I decided, I finally needed to tell you, because my sister, because she was adopted, and she just recently got in contact with her half sister from her birth parents. And so she's like, and my sister thought that I should tell you. And it turns out that I have an older half brother that I never knew about, that I guess mom had before she met my dad, a long time before.
That happens.
But the part that really got to me, because that was before mom was converted and all that kind of stuff, was she had said, well, on some advice, she never told me because I wasn't married, but she had told my two sisters who already were, because since I was single, that would give me the impression that behavior was okay. And that damaged my relationship with my parents so bad, because I was like, really? I'm not bright enough to think for myself, or I'm not, you don't trust your teachings, or what is it? What's going on?
Yeah.
I was like, well, what? Did you get this advice from the bishop? And mom's like, no, I got it from Dr. Laura. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? But then, because mom listens to her just religiously, and I can't stand the woman. But
yeah, and plus she's a Jew, isn't she?
Yeah,
Dr. Laura's the Jewish faith. Yeah, Schlesinger. Yeah.
But then it's I started writing to mom and dad only in one sentence emails, because I was just so mad. I couldn't talk to them. Huh. My dad had replied saying, well, it's not our place to discuss with others, the sins of the past. And I'm like, it's not a freaking sin. I don't care what mom did. This is my older brother. This is my sibling, and I don't get to know about him.
Yeah, and I think part of or at least what I'm hearing, is that one of the main insulting aspects of this gesture is that your other siblings did know. If they'd withheld it from everybody, it might be less condescending to you, but they singled you out because you were literally single.
Yeah.
And in fear that if you, such a moldable, impressionable, selfless, spineless thing,
right, unthinking,
got wind that it was okay to
have sex before you're in the church.
Then that could lead you. That would tempt you.
Oh God!
Is that the gist of what was insulting about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
It was just, well, never mind the fact that by the time they told me I was 32 or 33, I'm like, really?
Yeah, somewhere in all those years.
But they had told my sisters a couple years before.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Really?
And I was like, you don't understand. I don't care what you did, because that's between you and God. That's not my place to go in there and judge. I guess they are so judgy. Yeah. So I got my brother's information and phone number and stuff from Mom, and so
you did have a chance to meet him then, huh? Or talk to him at least.
Talk to him, yeah. And so he's on my Facebook, and so we'll sit there and chat every once in a while, and so that's been really great that I finally. I always wanted a big brother.
Is he religious?
So, actually, I guess for a while he was in the Mormon church as well, because I guess he was adopted by a Mormon family.
Huh. Okay.
But no, he's left the church. So
amazing. Wow.
I'm still trying to get inside your head, because I can tell that you're deeply hurt by this thing, and ended up being, not only in the letter, but your emotions are still kind of raw around it.
Oh yeah.
And that was specifically the wedding, but this other thing about not telling you about the brother, I'm thinking also as a child. I'm just trying to get inside her head here.
Yeah.
As a child, not as a child chronologically, because you're 35 or something at this point, but you are their child. And in some ways, it could be conveyed to you through their actions that their loyalty to their faith was higher than their loyalty to you.
It seems that way sometimes.
Yeah. As opposed to having the confidence in you to handle information, they felt the need to protect you from the information. And that's just a lack of vote of confidence on you.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's I can't even find the words right now. Oh my goodness.
That's fine. Well, we can. So what we'd like to do is kind of end with lighthearted personal questions, and we were mentioning when you mentioned Hawaii as far as one of the locations of
Brigham Young University.
Yeah. Have you ever traveled outside the continental U.S.?
Yeah, I've been to Hawaii, but I was like 2 months old, so I'm told that it doesn't count. But I was like, I got a sunburn, so it kind of does. But yeah, no, I went to England a couple times.
Oh yeah, what
cool?
What for?
Yeah, I was at the time dating a guy from there, but
cool. Well, that's cool. That's nice. Nice areas up there.
So yeah, I gotta go to Stonehenge and went to Wales, and it was really neat. I still want to go back because I want to go to Scotland and Ireland.
Oh yeah, it's nice too. Cornwall, if you ever have a chance to go to.
Yeah, we went down there for a bit too.
Beautiful down there.
Oh gosh,
yeah.
I love the beach there. It was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, it reminds me of Maine. Very rocky and yeah, great fishing.
And it was so windy, and all the trees were sitting at an angle because of the constant wind. So
that's right. Yeah, you're right.
Are you reading anything right now?
I actually just recently started How Evolution is True.
Okay.
Oh.
Who's that?
Yeah, it's by Jerry A. Coyne.
Oh, Coyne, Jerry Coyne.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, I often feel really uneducated when it comes to evolution, because obviously my whole Christian life I had quarantined that nonsense off of my radar, and since I'm being a scientific believer, and an evolutionary, I accept evolution as a theory. I just haven't got into it. So reading books like that would be good for me, but I just can't arouse the interest. What makes you? Do you want to just be more versed in what actually happened and maybe?
Well, my high school that I went to was a charter school that my parents helped found because they didn't like the stuff that the public schools were teaching. They didn't like the curriculum. So like in our biology textbook, because they got to help pick out all the textbooks and everything, the only evolution that was touched on was about a paragraph. And it was like barely mentioned. So I was the kind of kid that when we had the health class in sex ed, like I was pulled from the sex ed and stuff because the parents couldn't let us go through that. And
oh boy.
So
just completely ill-equipped to deal with the world or life.
I feel like my education has been completely lacking, and that like I've been robbed of all this knowledge. And I mean, like when I went off to college, my dad gave me a blessing saying, well, you're going to face some untruths, but you'll be able to discern what's true or not. And that's talking about, you know, the Big Bang and evolution and this kind of stuff, because that's not how it happened, you know, because we were very literal with the Bible.
Yeah. Man.
So I just recently, I was just like, I feel like I've been cheated. So I've been reading all kinds of stuff.
Well, good for you to go back and self-educate. Yeah.
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 So what about fun movies, songs, music? What are you into?
As far as music, funny you say that, like, because one of my most favorite bands is Nightwish. And, you know, they're symphonic power metal. They're, I don't know, Finland or Norway or something like that.
Symphonic power metal. I guess I've never heard of that.
Because, like, they have whole orchestral arrangements with it, along with the guitar and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the heavy guitar.
Their most recent CD from a couple years ago, Endless Forms Most Beautiful, like, it actually has some spoken parts by Professor Dawkins. And they quote a bit from The Origin of Species, which once I realized that was from The Origin of Species, I read it. So
yeah, good.
Wow.
You know,
yeah, sort of. That's good. Self-referential and stuff. That's
oh my goodness,
outstanding.
So like, and that CD, because of like all that it goes through and everything, that's like one of my most favorite pieces now.
Super.
And what's the name of the band again?
Nightwish.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we grab a little clip of that. That'd be awesome. And how about Netflix? Do you watch a lot of films, movies? You go to the movies, you and your hubby, or?
Yeah, I mean, we went and saw Wonder Woman when it came out, and then last night on Netflix I watched something with William Shatner. I think it was titled "The Truth Is in the Stars" or something like that. But he went and talked to different scientists and actors and stuff about how science fiction has influenced science itself.
Yes.
And it actually ends with him sitting down and having a conversation with Stephen Hawking.
Wow.
Cool.
That's
that was really cool. But as far as like fun watches, I'm completely addicted to the movie Serenity and the series that it came from, Firefly.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, that's a mixture of Western and sci-fi.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, space Western. It's awesome.
Well, you were probably one of those that was brokenhearted when they canceled the series.
Well, I didn't find out about it until after.
Okay. So
I just routinely cry every time. No,
that's cool.
That's super. Wow.
Well, it's been great to get to know you, Molly, and I appreciate, I sought you out. Unlike most of our guests, kind of either here and say, I want to share my story. And I can't remember, I don't know how, it was like probably mutual friends on Facebook, and I was just linking around. And to be honest with you, I don't mean to sound like we have a quota, but I'm just constantly trying to get more women on the show because so much of atheist podcasts, are dominated by males. And so,
yeah. It's good to get women on. Because the perspective that's brought is completely different, I think. Always very interesting. I've never heard leaving a religion because of being insulted and hurt by the church, this way, the way you described it. But this was a very personal transgression against you, and all those who, just want to get married, want to have a family, that kind of stuff. So that was very interesting.
And a personal revulsion, like you said, the key in on that word is that, like, you have to have agency to be revulsed.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta go.
And so you had some agency left after all those years of of, like you said, insular protection from knowledge. You can't go to the sex ed class. You can't go to you can't have more than a paragraph about evolution. And yet something, no matter how much bullshit rubble they tried to bury your agency under, it emerged like Shawshank Redemption from the sewage.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on, Molly. You got anything you want to say in closing? Did you have a good experience?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, a lot of the stuff in the past year that's really changed my mind has just been starting to listen to different podcasts and everything like that. So,
do you have anybody in your area that you're friends with that are ex-religious or
somebody you could hang with
that would empathize or can relate to your journey?
I did for a while. My wedding videographer, she was the one that got me started on podcasts, and then she just recently moved up to Minnesota. So so she's not local anymore. Yeah. But like I said, I had someone message me through my Facebook page saying, "Yeah, you're not alone." So actually, I'm planning on going to one of the little meetups. Next week. So.
Cool. Yeah, that's outstanding. That's what you need. In fact, I think Cass has an Everyone Agnostic podcast. What's it called?
Support group.
Yeah. You should join her up.
Yeah,
join her up.
I'll sign her up.
Yeah. Because then you can at least chat with people online that are going through very much what you're going through, among other things, too.
Yeah, I mean, the Mormonism is different, but the chokehold that it had on your life, is pretty similar with all these narratives, religious narratives, no matter what.
Yeah, good point.
Thanks again. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, Mal, thanks,
dear.
Good talking to you.
Yeah, nice talking to you, too.
Molly UnMormon or
Exmo. Molly Exmo.
That's actually flows better than
Yeah. She's and I was very serious about that. I mean, a woman who was revulsed
and personally
insulted and hurt by what they did to her
on several occasions.
On many occasions, exactly. And we've heard a lot, but I don't think I've heard that one before.
This is a little unique,
Yeah. So, and that's why it's interesting to talk to people.
It's still the death of 1,000 cuts. But in this case, it was just.
And it really, you could tell when she was how deeply hurt and still hurt.
Yeah,
she is.
She opened some fresh wounds there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Wow.
But we're a little naive. I mean, because at least when we're talking to Christians, I know their faith like the back of my hand, and I always feel a little fish out of water when we're talking to
Mormons,
or anything outside.
But it's still a strange, like you'll say, well, of course, the virgin birth, of course, what do you call it? Something atonement, secondary atonement, substitutionary atonement. Why, sure, rising from the dead. Why, sure, that all makes sense. And then you listen to the Mormons and you go, well, that's wacky. Well, no, it's both are pretty wacky when you think about it. In terms of physics and science, and how's that even possible? It's not possible. These are stories, myths, tales. And when she says we don't believe in some of the Christian stuff because it's not correct or it's not Mormon or whatever. Well, but that's a reading of the Bible that's completely foreign as well.
Yeah,
because Jews came over with the Indians to this country, according to the Mormons.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a wild. People are creative.
It is sad to watch humans try to wrestle and argue about the more or less soundness of doctrine. All of which is made out of fluffy, pulled out of the air, pulled out of your ass.
Yeah.
And we're debating the soundness of, was the unicorn's horn pink, or was, if a unicorn's tail is only 13 inches long, then it doesn't belong in the class of superiors, or we can, and I think this is true of like really good liars. Like a pathological liar, they have figured out that the more dates, The more adjectives, the more words, the more proper nouns with capital letters, or the more complex you make a lie, the more believable it sounds to the listener. And
That's very true.
I know that there's no one. Well, in this case, Joseph Smith, but I mean, there's a lot of what happened after Joseph Smith died was just built on by other people trying to add layers and layers of complexities to the lie, not in order. It does nobody's intention. I don't think that anybody intended to just build this lie.
Right.
But it does form just out of the imagination of human beings. You know what an improv class is? We just spoke with Marlene Wynell last week, and we're talking about the improv. And what improv is you say something, and then I internally say yes and, and I build on it. Then you say yes and back, and the story takes off. That's what's happening with these religions. Yeah. As Joseph Smith passes his load of bullshit on to Brigham Young, he adds his bullshit to it, and then every little elder in every little pocket of every little side of the country where this is showing up is adding their little bullshit flavorings until you have just volumes like books. And books, all religions, they just have tons and tons of books. It's for you to read to gird up your belief in this nonsense that's vaporous in midair if it ever got the light of day shone on it, you know.
And you take the next step, go from Mormonism to Scientology. Well, there you go. You know, Satans and planets and all that stuff too.
So maybe I was confusing that with when I referred to the planets, but because
there's planets
in Mormonism
too. Yeah, God lives on a planet. You could live there too. So it's wow. Always fascinating.
And we're sharing the planet. I mean, with other humans.
These are actual people that think
that
this.
Near and dear to us. Some of it. I mean, I've got friends that are near and dear to me. I wish to heck I could. You know, we could just get along without this giant unicorn running around our relationship. You know, it's like like a horse has big old hooves and shits where it wants. It's almost like we're in this little room right here, which is probably 100 square foot room, and we bring it. It would hinder our relationship for a unicorn to be in this room.
In here? Yeah,
he would trample this soundboard. He'd get all caught up in the chords here, and that's what it does to relationships.
But they do poop rainbows, so you know.
Yeah, there's that.
There you go.
Good way to shut me down.
Well, we should do it again next week with the unicorn. Let's bring him in. Oh, without? Okay, without.
Fuck
That's
that
fine.
Unicorn.
Okay, Kaz. See you later.
From so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being.